Okay, so we're back. So this today I'm going to review chapters 5 through 11. So we the other day we went over chapters 1 through 5, all the way up into reading strategy, and so now today we'll discuss note-taking strategy um, through managing stress. Okay, so in these slides today, we're going to discuss active listening and note-taking, purposes of class notes, prioritizing and planning, evaluating sources for research, things to do when answering essay questions, resources used, completing your career research project, and then the best way to manage stress. So as we discussed during class, active listening aids in proper note taking. So you have to be able to pay attention to take proper notes. Um, we use our notes as study guides, and then taking notes also helps us stay focused on the question at hand. Well-written notes helps us organize our thoughts, enhance our memory, participate in class discussion, as well as prepare us to respond successfully on exams. And so we have to be able to also know what's important, what's pertinent, and what's not, so that we're not just writing down too much information and then we lose track because we're busy writing and not really focusing on what's pertinent. The best notes are the ones you take in an organized manner that encourages frequent review and use as you progress through your topic or your course of study. Writing the main ideas and key supporting information is key. Also, what you do after note-taking sessions is equally significant. We discussed that as well, annotating, going back, highlighting, making notes, underlining, um, and then handwriting versus typing directly into a computer. Everyone's different. I myself, as I mentioned, I learn better and I retain the information better when I actually write it by hand. But you know, I was taught cursive, so it's easy to write. I know they don't teach that anymore, so printing actually takes longer. So a lot of students do use the laptop. It just depends on what works best for you. And then, as I mentioned, annotating your notes after the initial note taking, because that's valuable, because that lets you go back and to comprehend the information that you learned and took notes on, as well as organizing it. So the 5 R's of note taking: you record it during the lecture, make sure it's legible, then you reduce it, write a summary of that information, and that's where you stick to the pertinent information and using keywords or keywords, and then you recite that information in your own words without looking at your notes. So you can start to, again, now that's where we start doing working on our memory and reading strategies and through repetition. And then reflect in your own opinion and ideas, raise questions, and record original ideas, and then review. Before reading new material, take 10 minutes to review your older notes. Skim over the main ideas and details so that you fully understand that content. And so we discussed the different note-taking methods. So this one, it's 3 of them here. We discussed Cornell method, which is, to me, it's like a combination of outlining um, within, well, it includes outlining, because your main section here, you kind of have your bullet points, the main topics and subtopics, and then in the margins, you have your cues, which will be the vocabulary dates, um, vocabulary words, sorry, or important dates, or any type of questions, the main ideas, and then at the bottom, your summary. And so your outline method is just main topic, subtopic, supporting information, and then you break it down from there. And then we have a table or chart that still includes your what, where, when, who, or how. It's just the layout is differently. You're putting that information in a chart format. And then you also have your mapping. And so we discuss based on how you learn. The Cornell method, outline method may work best for those who are read write. And then those visual learners probably would use a table, chart, or the mapping method. And then this is just a graph showing the shorthand, how to like abbreviations, and I know some stuff has evolved since then. And sometimes we create our own short words and abbreviations. Key is to remember what you created, because I have done that before. I abbreviated something, and then when I went back to look at it, I could not remember what I had wrote and what it meant. So make sure you understand your own abbreviations and your own shorthand. Okay. And then active listening and note taking. So there's 5 study strategies, um, and these all still they kind of all fall right in line with one another. So I know we've been looking at a lot of charts and pyramids and 5 steps of this and 3 steps of that. But when you start really going back and looking at it, it all falls in line and it's all similar to each other. Reciting the information, you elaborate on that information, you self quiz, and then you visualize it, find an image that you can associate with it, and then using mnemonic devices to create whether a rhyme or acronym or something like that to help you remember. So this is still goes back to um, even similar to like how we the process of reading, the SQ3Rs. Um, it's just a similar process, but it's now we're using this to actually study, to using our memory to memorize the information that we took in. And then we also discussed prioritizing and planning. So the things we posed, the question we posed were, what resources will you need? What skills will you need? Deadline dates, setting realistic deadline dates, being flexible to readjust your plans and deadlines when something does happen or throw things off. Um, so when you get ready to prepare yourself, um, when you're getting ready to study and take your notes, make sure you have everything you need right there, so you don't have to keep getting up and then because that would include that will lead to distractions, and then you're not able to focus as thoroughly if you're being distracted because you have to get up. Nope, you forgot your pen. Now you got to go get up and get that. Nope, I forgot my paper. Now I got to go get that. And then, a lot of times when we get up from one thing, that leads us to doing something else. And then next, 30 minutes have passed before we sat back down to what we were originally doing. So we want to make sure we have what we need, and that involves planning, setting realistic deadline dates, um, so that we can stay on task, and then be flexible because things happen. We discussed part of um, being prepared is being controlling what you can control, and things that you have no control over. You just have to be able to kind of adjust and be flexible with that. And then the importance of where you do your work, the right space, make sure it's somewhere quiet and it's cool, or not too cold, not too hot, but you're able to stay focused and you're comfortable. And then, of course, make sure it's distraction free because we can't study um, and do our assignment if we're constantly being distracted. We won't be able to do our best work. And then make sure you're working at the right time. And we discussed in class what works best for you. And a couple people kind of knew the time of day, excuse me, the time of day that they're most productive, whether it's in the morning, midday, or in the evening. Use that to your advantage, so that you can get be as productive as possible. All right. So here, setting the stage again, switch up your environment, get a good night's sleep, because we did talk about the importance of sleep and the side effects when we don't get enough sleep, what it can do as far as not how it affects our brain. Listening to calm music, if that works for you, eliminating distractions, and snack on smart food. And we discussed that as well the last day of class. Foods for your brain, those berries and nuts. Those are easy snack foods that when I discussed that hand to mouth motion, it kind of keeps you moving so that you don't get too sleepy, but it's not heavy and it has health benefits as well. So again, we also discuss procrastinating, how that's the act of delaying some task that needs to be completed. And we talked about the high cost of poor time management, whether it's and how it can cost us regarding our academic performance. That means failed grades or low grades if you're getting on a scholarship or in a certain program that have either GPA requirement or specific courses, not courses, but grades that you need. You want to be able to perform the best possible. But if you procrastinate and then you don't perform well, now that does affect your performance. If you're trying to transfer to a four-year school, and of course, depending on where you're trying to go, they may be very competitive, meaning the higher the GPA, the more likely you are being accepted. Um, and then delaying graduation. If you have to retake a class because you procrastinated and didn't perform how you need to perform, now you have to retake that course, and that's additional cost as well as setting you back um, by either a couple classes or even a semester or two, adding more time on when you're able to graduate. So we just want to be aware of that, all right? Again, we want to be able to plan, prepare, and be in control of what we can control so that we can perform at our best. Then we discussed evaluating sources for research. So we talked about information literacy, um, which is that's the literacy as a set of skills. Information literacy is a set of skills that allow you to recognize what information is needed and have the ability to locate, evaluate, and use effectively the needed information. So that's important when you're doing your research, if you're writing a paper, um, and even as we discuss in social media. If you're scrolling on social media and you hear information, check that information out first. Don't just repost anything stuff you see without doing your own vetting and fact checking it, because there's a lot of false information out there. Um, so we want to be able to know where to go to research it when it comes to like doing papers and assignments for your classes, knowing your library, what your library has to offer, and all the various uh, publications and types of information. As I mentioned, a very basic search is Google, but you're not going to get, when you're really trying to go in depth on a subject, you're not going to really find what you need by Googling it. It's only kind of going to keep you on the surface. You need to get those peer review journals, articles that where somebody has actually studied the information and have really broken it down, the same steps we just went over, evaluating, reciting, um, analyzing, and then supporting our information. That all of that is involved in those library inf- content and I guess just different articles and journals that um, the library has access to, where somebody has actually studied that information, evaluated, and they're able to prove whatever that theory is, or that content. So that's where you want to go to really find in-depth information on a particular subject. And then be a critical thinker as well as a critical reading. When you're reading, remember we discussed asking questions and then going back to find the answers to those questions. Because you can always pose the questions to anything. Um, Sometimes you may see a different perspective than what you read. And who knows, that may be an opportunity for you to study that more further in a future class or a future project. And then information ethics. Again, we discussed copyright, being able to cite your information. So when you're using quotes or writing a paper, or if you copy and paste anything in any assignment, even if it's not a paper, if you're just putting in an answer, you still need to cite that information. Excuse me. Cite the information, because if you don't, it's considered plagiarism and you could get in a lot of trouble for that. All right. So these are how we basically research information and using information literacy to um, verify and fact check the information that we post or that we use for classes and papers and assignments. And then again, used for evaluating sources of research, determine the extent of the information you need, access the needed information effectively and efficiently, evaluate information and its sources critically, incorporate selected information into one's knowledge base, use information effectively to accomplish a specific purpose, and then ask, does other experts agree with the information presented? That's those peer review articles and journals where people have actually done the research. All right, so we identify the information, we find it, then we evaluate it, we apply it, then we acknowledge it. And then things to do when answering an essay question. So there's two sides here. One is based on like if you're doing an essay as part of a test, or if you're writing an essay where that's part of an assignment and you have time to revise it and all. Because if you're doing a test, you may not have the time to really do the research. So the steps of writing an essay here on um, the right is kind of what you would do like for a test. You introduce the topic, you draft heading, then you explain and provide examples for it. Then you can write a conclusion based on that information, based on your explanation and your examples. And then you may have time to revise it and edit it before completing the assignment, especially if it's like done on the computer. You kind of do that if you have time remaining. If it's kind of handwritten, um, you may or may not, especially if you're writing in pen, but a lot of times now what we do, everything is done on the computer. So you at least have some time if you're able to finish early. But if you have an assignment that's due and you're writing an essay, the process, the steps for that is one, decide exactly what you'll write about, research that topic so that you have all the information and that you're familiar with it and you're able to explain it thoroughly. Then you start to plan and outline it. Write your first draft, go through that, and then from there you redraft and revise, make it more efficient. Um, no, there's noise. I have my windows open. Sorry, but make sure it's relevant. The information is factual, um, and then of course you're always looking for grammar. Make sure it's written well. That's your editing and your proofreading, and then you would submit it. Okay. And then we discuss managing stress. We discuss the good versus the bad, how some stress is helpful, and those are that's the type of stress that can help us meet daily challenges when we kind of feel under the gun a bit. Then we have to kind of prioritize and take one thing at a time and knock out that to-do list. Um, like during the exam time, during finals, where you have exams and assignments that's all due around the same time. It helps you focus, but it can be overwhelming. Um, so you can tend to stress out a bit, but that's where you want to focus on what you can control. And then again, that comes into planning and prioritizing, knowing, setting those smart goals, knowing when things are due. So you want to be able to tackle things based on when they're due. What's due first, you may want to go ahead and work on that first. But if it's if you have one big assignment and it may be due later, don't wait until that assignment is due to start working on it. You may want to start that one early, at least get it prepped, and then go work on the assignment that's due first, and then come back to that one. So you just start it early. Again, we talked about this. That's part of time management, being able to plan these activities out, your assignments out, and to handle them in a way so that you're able to constructively get everything done. And then bad stress is when it becomes chronic, meaning you always feel stressed. Um, it's not based on the situation. When that situation is over now and you're still stressed, that's when it becomes bad, and that's when it starts affecting your doing damage to your body and affecting your health. Um, and so can affect your blood pressure, your heart rate, and so we want to avoid that. Best way to deal with stress is to Take charge of your stress by dealing with the issues now instead of putting them off, because we don't want it to um, just overlap and just become this big mountain that we really stress out. Now we can't even attack it because it's too big. You want to get ahead of it, and then if you need help, seek help. Remember, we discussed the wellness center that we have. You have advisors, you have your instructor, you have your support system that we discussed that first week. So reach out to whoever you need to reach out to get help. So tips, excuse me, tips for managing stress. Excuse me. Exercise, limit your caffeine intake because caffeine does affect your body. Be mindful, practice gratitude, and we discussed that the other week. When you're grateful for the small things, then it just sets your mind and it just puts you in a better mood to be able to handle situations, even if they are stressful. Get adequate sleep, because again, we discussed how sleep can damage our bodies, how a lack of sleep can damage our bodies. Try to eat balanced meals so that your body is performing at its best. Set small goals for yourself. Like I said, if you have a major project, you don't want to tackle that project all at one time. Spread it out so that you're able to kind of knock it out bit by bit. And then again, setting those small goals allows you to manage your goals more productively and smaller increments than at one time, because that's stressful in itself. Express your emotions. Don't just let it bottle up. Talk to someone about it, but do it in an effective and respectful way. Um, have your personal sanctuary. Ask for help, and then set some me time. If you have a lot on your plate, if you have kids, if you're married, you work, you have to have time for yourself just to unwind down, just have some downtime to relax your body as well as relax your brain. And then slow down. We have a lot going on, so sometimes just slowing down, that's part of also controlling what you can control and just, you know, manage things as best you can in smaller increments, which will allow you to slow down. And then focus on your breathing, just doing some deep breathing exercises. Inhale for like 6, hold it for about 4 counts, and then do a slow exhale for like 8 counts. That will help um, slow your heart rate down. You find yourself, having stress and anxiety, your heart rate is racing. Those deep breathing exercises will slow down your heart rate. So again, our review highlights. This is everything for the last, um, the other day where we discussed the first 1 through 5 chapters, and then 5 through 11, chapters 5 through 11. So this is what you want to again focus on, what I just went over, um, so that you can be ready for your exam. Again, like I stated, if you have questions, um, email me to my direct email. And then these are just things that we kind of, just overall, what we went over in class, what you've learned, overcoming challenges, supporting, having a support system, knowing about the Wellness Center and the resources that we offer, knowing your career path. That's through your career assessment that you're working on now. Um, Knowing how to research and network. Remember, we also discussed that. Knowing who your department chair is, knowing who your program coordinators are in your department. Talk to them for additional resources. And then time management, being able to prioritize, to plan effectively, and then avoid procrastination. And then proper note taking and test preparation. And then being able to navigate the high school to college transition, or just college life in general. Even if you've been out of high school for many years, um, it's a process and a transition to get back into going back to school, getting your brain to work again, and then just that discipline it takes to buckle down to do your schoolwork and the assignments that's necessary that are required. And so just knowing also how to navigate the website, knowing uh, how to go through your OWLINK, accessing your OWLINK portal. So you know what your program requirements, you know how to make payments, you can look up your financial aid information, you can look up classes as well as your grades, and then when it's time to graduate, you can apply for your graduation. Navigate, same thing, you can plan your courses and register for classes there as well. Of course, you know about Canvas, accessing your classes, but then just getting familiar with the website and knowing how to access those resources that you may need, the tutoring center as well. And then paying attention to your student email. That's how we communicate with you. Um, so I know it's a lot of information. We get it too. It can be annoying, but you if at least check your PGCC email once a week because your advisors are sending you information, and a lot of times we are sending job information. Um, and I've had where I've sent information on jobs or events we've had where we have employers, and then like the 2 days later, a student will email me, ask me if I know of any jobs. I'm like, I just sent the information out, but they missed the event because they didn't read the email. So always try and check your emails every couple of days. Okay. All right. So that's basically it for the last couple of chapters of class. So again, as I mentioned the other day, you have your career research project that's due May 3rd, and then your final exam opened on not May, opened on April 31st, and will close on May 5th at noon, not 11:59 p.m. May 5th at noon. So have your assignment in by 11:59 a.m., not p.m. And again, if you have any questions, you can always email me. Thank you and good luck. And good luck on all of your assignments and all of your final exams.